Buckeye Talk back with our outrageous predictions for Ohio State against Maryland on Saturday. I'm Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Stephen Means and Doug Lesmerises. Ohio State coming off of a 52-14 victory. Maryland coming off of a 51-13 defeat. Could make for some interesting predictions. Doug, what's your outrageous prediction?
So TreVeyon Henderson only has one game so far where he's rushed for more than 100 yards. He's rushed for more than 200 yards in that game. He is fourth in the nation in yards per carry at 9.44. He is 21st in the nation in rushing yards per game at 102. So he's averaging more than 100 yards per game, even though he's only rushed for 100 yards more just once. So he is, I mean, it's not like he's competing with Bijan Robinson, but these games are going to be on at the same time at noon on Saturday. Texas versus Oklahoma. Bijan Robinson has a chance to knock off a playoff team. And he's been having a great year. And he's had at least 100 rushing yards, I think, in 4 of his 5 games this year. TreVeyon Henderson's here because they didn't get Bijan Robinson. So I'm just noting that TreVeyon Henderson doesn't care. But I'm going to predict a big game for him. They're going to let him go. They're going to give him the carries, I think. So I'm going to say 175 rushing yards for TreVeyon Henderson, which is not another 200-yard game, but at least in triple digits for the second time in his career. 175 for TreVeyon.
Which means he'll get all of 18 carries?
Yeah, it might be 13. I mean, again, he's averaging 9+. So, I mean, if you divide it, what's 9 times whatever to get you to 175? He's extraordinary.
10 times 18 would be 180. So that's why I came up with that. You said he's fourth in the nation in yards per carry, but I think only one other person of those 4 is anywhere close to him. And 2 of those people have very few carries.
Correct.
Right? Like 20, 25 carries. So even though his carries have not been abundant the last couple of weeks, he's still been more than those people. And tied for the most country rushes of 40 yards or more with 4. Steven, I think you're in the same ballpark as Doug. So give us your outrageous prediction.
Yeah. And the 277 makes mine not that outrageous along with Doug's as well. But I'm saying he's going to get the ball 25 times and have 250 yards. This is going to pay off. The fact that they haven't had to use him much for most of the season as we get into bigger games when they do start needing him, the same way we saw with JK in 2019, where all of a sudden they're playing Penn State, Michigan, Big Ten championship game. He's getting 30 carries per game. He's not going to get that a lot right now, but I do think you need to start getting him into a rhythm. And Maryland's a middle of the road run defense. I think they're averaging 118 per game. And so they're not great. And so this is the type of a game where you can give CJ some extra rest, kind of cheat the rest by just leaning into the TreVeyon Henderson show and giving him another 20+ carry game. So I'm saying 25 carries that he turns into 250 yards. And he just has his way with Maryland's defense. And even then, do
you think he's going to run for 200 yards a game every time he gets a decent number of carries now? No. 250 yards is extraordinary.
No, I don't think that. I think he's going to do it in this game. I don't think he's going to do it every week. I think what we'll really, in more realistic terms, I think what we'll start seeing as we get into bigger games is maybe he gets it 20 to 25 times, and it's anywhere between 110 and 130. But in this game, it's going to be 250 because it's outrageous.
Also, can you be incredulous about an outrageous prediction? It's supposed to be outrageous.
True.
I know, but he ran for 277 yards. It's the greatest game by a freshman in Ohio State history, and it's let's do that again.
To be fair, the following week where he also barely got the ball on his 8 carries, he averaged 11.6 carries. And then the next week where he barely got the ball was 8.9 carries.
I know, but no,
he is not
going to actually average 10 yards per carry.
He's not actually going to do 10 carries per game. But in this game, he's going to run for 250 as my outrageous prediction.
The important number for Maryland when you're gauging a run defense, it's 3.38 per carry. That's 36th in the country. So not that bad, really. And I would actually take the under on the 25 carries for him probably, too. That seems like a lot of carries for a game that the only reason he got to do that against Tulsa was because that game was closer than it should have been in a lot of ways. So we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. I'm going to go on the other side.
I just want to be clear on something, just to be clear on something. So the 277, I think, was the 3rd best rushing total in Ohio State history, behind Trey Sermon and Eddie George, right? 250 would be 6th.
Correct.
So he's going to have the 3rd best and the 6th best rushing games in the history of Ohio State football in the first 6 games of his career. Okay.
Indeed.
But 2 of those games did come within like a 6-game span of last season and this season. So Ohio State does seem to be at this juncture where they're kind of clicking with the run game, right?
No, yeah, but I know it's outrageous, but we're just throwing 250 bombs just out like, 250. What's 250? It's like, I don't know. It's the 6th best rushing game in the history of a 125-year-old program that has run the ball from its inception. So, okay, yeah. The word outrageous is in the title. I get that.
I hear you. I agree with you. This is why it's outrageous.
Mine is less outrageous. It was 2 weeks ago against Akron. Ohio State had 9 sacks, which was even more outrageous than Steven's outrage and my outrageous predictions on how many sacks they would get that game. Last week, only 1 against Rutgers, but was still affecting the game. Maryland is actually doing pretty good at avoiding sacks this year for Talia Tagovailoa. But I think Ohio State, you're starting to see a confidence build in this defense and a vibe build in this defense. I think they're going to come after him to try to force him into the same problems that Iowa was creating last week. So I'm going to take 5 sacks again, which is what I predicted for the Akron game. Tougher opponents. I'm going to take 5 sacks again, but 1 strip sack return for a touchdown. Because that's the other thing this team is doing right now is I think this is also contagious. You've seen this with defenses before, that it's often not an accident that there are teams that are good at scoring off of defensive plays. Like it's this team, it has some emerging playmakers, and we've seen it in the secondary. We've seen it even a little bit up front with guys being able to scoop things up and return it. So I'm going to take 5 sacks, 1 of them picked up and taken back for a touchdown in a relatively easy Ohio State win.
Do you want to give somebody the touchdown? I mean, Haskell Garrett got 1 in the first game. Do you want to go that far to say I'm going to go? Tell us who strips it and then who gets the touchdown. You don't have to do the yardage and all that, but give it some names.
I'm gonna take Jack Sawyer
as the strip sack, as a scoop and scorer, or the strip sacker.
That's a good point, Steven. Yeah. I'm gonna say both. I'll give him both. I'm giving the whole shebang. I'm putting it all on him. Big moment for Jack Sawyer against Maryland.
I do think Zach Harrison goes for the ball pretty well when he gets in there.
Yeah.
He has that on his mind.
I think it's just as likely it could be Zach Harrison strip sack, Teron Vincent picks it up and scoops it, Antoine Jackson picks it up and scoops it. I could definitely see something like that. So I feel like the defensive line, it's the one place on this team where it still seems like it could be incredible in some ways if it comes together, and maybe we're still the farthest away from that, realizing that in some ways, but it's coming. Maybe we got to see it against a team like someone like Talia Tagovailoa, and maybe that'll give us an indication of what can happen in the second half. Get the text 614-350-3315. We'll have intel pregame, during the game, after the game from Maryland at Buckeye Talk.